Hello and welcome to the MiniMapCast. It is MiniMap's premier games podcast, your favorite games podcast. I very recently, by recently I mean like minutes ago, removed the word weekly out of the intro and changed it to premier because it's been a hot minute. The MiniMapCast is MiniMap's premier podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure to give the show a positive rating on the podcast platform of choice. I'm having to skip over so many aspects of the catch us on Twitch at this time, before, during, after the show.
We're getting our sea legs back under us.
Getting the sea legs. Oh, I heard a really great joke earlier, which I'll about the sea, which I'll bring up in a minute.
Shake the rust off.
But before we start, my name is Jeremy, and joining me as always is Kerry Palmer.
What's up? I was so ready to intro the show.
Do you have the script?
I heard the music. It was like a Pavlovian response. I was like, I was like blinking. I was like, wait, something's supposed to happen.
Pavlov's podcast intro. If you want to stay up to date with what we're doing and when we're putting new episodes out, make sure to head to minimap.com.au and also follow us on socials. You can do that by heading over to at minimapau on all of the social accounts: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram,
Blue Sky.
Yeah. I'm so mad that didn't take off in any real meaningful way. I really wanted it to.
Late. It's not too late, man.
I think it is, unfortunately. And as always, we want to say a very big thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can do that. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. And lastly, if you want to support what we're doing, you can give us $5 over on patreon.com/MinimapAU. It helps keep things running. And you can ask us questions and stuff on there as well. And there's some behind the scenes stuff, but it's just a really nice way of allowing us to continue to do this when we do it. The joke, Kerry, about the sea that I heard, which we'll get to the other part of the intro soon.
The joke about the sea.
The joke about the sea that I saw was a guy standing on the beach, and he goes, "Wow, look at that yacht over there." No. What is it? No, he says, "Look at that yak over there," pointing at a yacht. He goes, "No, you don't." He goes, "No, you don't say the sea." He goes, "No, the sea is silent." And he's looking at the ocean, going, "Yeah, sure is tranquil."
The sea is silent.
The sea is silent. Kerry, just before we started recording,
that reminds me of the marine biologist episode of Seinfeld, where George comes in and regales the group with his exploits of getting a golf ball out of
oh my god,
whale's blowhole.
I watched a clip which was them talking. Well, it was Jerry specifically talking about that episode, and about how the link between Kramer hitting the golf ball into the whale and George pretending to be a marine biologist didn't exist until the day before they started production. Like that they had these two subplots and they were bringing it together, but they didn't bring that one together until just before they started production of that episode. I don't know how true that is. I was
literally just sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, why would they have filmed more of that? I'm like, oh, they probably had no way to film it. So they just had Jason Alexander in their normal diner set tell a ridiculous story in a really engaging fashion.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best scenes from that show ever.
I think that people like Seinfeld, they like to perhaps embellish a little bit about how quickly things come together because they love for it to be it's so spontaneous.
It's so spontaneous.
Just the creativity that was flowing between us all allowed us to create this. And realistically,
it was such a feat.
Yeah, like a triumph of humor. But I think realistically, they probably have some of that stuff ready to go a little bit earlier than that. Just before we started recording, we were talking about well, you were telling us about Sam's experience with the youths.
Yes.
And about
all about Skibbity and Sigma.
Yeah, Skibbity and Sigma. And then as I went to go get my laptop charger and come back, I mentioned that it was windy outside.
Yeah, windy.
And I was saying that windy is...
It's like saying crunch.
Yes, yeah, it is exactly like saying crunch. And I was saying that that's maybe the most millennial phrase that I say because I don't say like heckin' doggo, and I don't say like I don't even really say
do you
like
reference the word adult as a verb?
no, like I don't say adulting. I don't say like I don't say I don't know. I honestly sometimes have trouble thinking about them because there are certain things that I just don't internalize. But as one of the youngest people at my workplace, most of them are millennial. Like I hear a lot of it a fair bit.
God, I hate that you aren't.
That I'm not a millennial.
Yeah, I hate that so much.
I'm only just not.
I know you're a borderline.
Yeah, but like I don't. But I also don't say sigma. Like I don't mew Kerry. I don't.
Yeah, good.
Like it's weird.
Yeah.
Do you say millennial phrases? Do you know?
Millennial phrases. Look, probably not, but it's the kind of thing that I say rad. Like
rad's not millennial.
I said that ironically when I was growing up, and now it's 15 years later and I'm still saying it.
Yeah.
So like, but that was like out of touch at the time, which is why I was saying it. It was like, oh, that's so funny. It's such a funny thing to say. And now fucking here we are. But
I've quickly Googled a few. I'm just going to list off just a couple of them and just
right,
tell me
I'll yes, no you.
if these are in your lexicon. Lit.
No. That's millennial?
Yeah.
You're shitting me.
Well, like kind of. I think that one's perhaps a little bit more like...
That's Zoomer coded.
No, I don't think it is. But I think that it's across a handful of generations.
Okay.
Do you say clap back? I know you don't say that.
No.
Do you do you say dranking?
Dranking? No, I've never heard that. What is that? This sounds all like Zoomer stuff. This is all stuff that came around when I was like past high school. What is this?
Do you say shook? Like I am shook?
Occasionally.
Do you say
Once a
bruh?
year. No.
You say bye Felicia?
No. That's a good one.
Stan.
No, but that's because I don't get it. Stan's like ooh woo. I'm just not meant to get it.
Using you as a like, do you use these phrases that your generation uses is a hilarious like barometer for this because it's just like
using me as a litmus test for anything. Someone said, "Oh, do you know this song?" Yesterday I was talking to them and they sang a little bit. They're like, "Oh, do you know that song?" I'm like, "Oh, no. You usually come up with songs I've never heard before. I don't know what that's about." And I'm like, and I sat there, I'm like, not that that means anything. Because I don't know anything. Talk to me about saxophonists and we'll have a different discussion.
Yeah, apparently.
But even then, if I talk to a saxophonist, I haven't listened to enough of them to know what they're talking about either.
You're just lost in a sea of references and culture. That's so funny.
I'm lost in the milieu of Snarky Puppy, and that's about it. Oh, it's been a good while since we've had a nice pre-podcast preamble. That's great. That was a good one.
Well, speaking of the podcast, would you like to talk to us about what you've been playing?
Oh, I sure would. Jeremy, I actually don't know. When was the last time we did a show?
It was a while ago. It was...
Let me see if
the last
Spotify
episode
can quickly back me up here.
It was just after DreamHack.
I'm seeing February. We did a discussion about Foam Stars, Spelunky 2, and February's game industry layoffs. And then I think you did a solo episode.
I think that was the solo episode.
Oh,
There's another
right.
one. There's another one that didn't actually get published, just because I didn't realize until the other day that it didn't get published. Which is a DreamHack one. So it was.
And the latest episode was the last one with Jam in March, which was a great episode.
Was a great episode.
So it's been about 6 months.
Yeah.
Since I've done this,
and let us know about all of the modern and topical games that you've been playing.
Oh man, so much modernity. Well, that said, I'm the one who's done the Elden Ring DLC and you haven't, which still blows my mind. But that's a discussion for later.
They haven't patched it on the Steam Deck yet.
You know, there's other places to play that game, right?
I don't understand.
What do you mean? Who could? So what I've been playing. The thing that has sucked up 85 hours of my time in basically just the last month-ish, maybe a little bit more than that, is Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Kerry.
Are you aware that this game sold 25 million copies?
Yeah, this game, I think, like, there are two games that changed Capcom. Like, and like there are two games that ushered in the modern era of Capcom's like their current golden age, which they're still in right now, is Monster Hunter World, and Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yeah,
those are the two that brought Capcom into this like renaissance of its former glory. It was just,
and they haven't really let go. I mean, they've had, it's been ups and downs as always. Like, people didn't love Resident Evil 3, but and the thing that's so funny about that is that was at the time, I think the previous year they launched Resident Evil 7 before World. Yeah. Then that was January. 2018 January was Monster Hunter World. 2019 January was Resident Evil 2. They owned that January spot when no one would be in there. Yeah. I mean, most people still don't occupy that space these days.
Yeah,
either.
Not really.
February's a bit heavier than it used to be. But ever since then, you're right. Capcom hasn't stopped. Oh, Jerry's
still up for now.
What happened?
The part of the adhesive has been falling off for the green screen. It's fine. It's still going, and you can't tell, so don't worry about it.
So I bring that up because it's like Monster Hunter is kind of like, I feel like it's like an industry secret that I haven't understood properly, if that makes any sense. Like Monster Hunter's this, I feel like it's this cult niche thing that I just haven't been able to get yet. Like, I haven't been in the right mood. But not only is it like something that I now understand, but also turns out it's one of Capcom's best-selling games ever of all time.
Yeah, they've made a lot of these, and they're all like it's a beloved franchise.
It is, and it's very particular, and it's uncompromising in a lot of ways. But World does a lot of things that make it good. Now, I don't want to harp on too much about how, like, I don't want to be like, I just discovered this new game, let me tell you about Monster Hunter World, because A, it's been out for 6.5 years, and B, 25 million people have played it. So, like, it's not a secret. This game is fantastic. It turns out this game's amazing.
I can't wait for you to get really into the Yakuza series. Like, I know you've played like
next.
I know you've played like Judgment and stuff, but like,
yeah,
like I can't wait for you
the DLC for that in the last 6 months.
Yeah, right. I can't wait for you to like play like Kiwami 2 or something and be like, this series.
Have you guys heard about Yakuza?
Sorry, continue about Monster Hunter.
So I guess what I want to talk about then is just that, like, I'm so joyful. I'm so pleased that I found so much like fun in this game.
Yeah.
It is so cool to find an everlasting gobstopper that I'm happy to keep chewing on. Like, especially having played Destiny this year when that came out, really enjoying the campaign, thinking as I do when I enjoy the campaigns of Destiny, of thinking like, oh, maybe I'll stick around a bit longer this time and see what it is. And 1 or 2 weeks after that, when there's no more campaign missions and it's a lot of like, do 3 public events to unlock a secret encounter that you don't make sure you don't miss it. Otherwise you have to repeat the last step. And it's like 2 hours of grinding for a little thing. Like, outside of that, I've played Destiny for dozens of hours. It doesn't take much for me to bounce off. even if I really like the campaign or like the new setting or whatever.
10 years of Destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something else we could talk about, but again, another topic for another time. So we've to find this single player game that I can play online or offline that's got hundreds of hours of content. Just so much content. And it's in a funny way, right? Because like if I were to do a single hunt of each of the individual monsters and then call that a day, that would be a lot of hours actually, because it takes like 15 to 30, sometimes 40 minutes if it's really tough to do each of these singular fights. So that would be like 20 or 30 hours for that.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter isn't about hunting one monster one time though. It's about hunting all of them lots of times. And then it's about getting new equipment based on all of that. And then being like, now I'm stronger, or now I can take on that way harder thing that was completely outclassing me. And then it's a new thing, and then it's a new area. And then if you get bored of your weapon, you can be like, let me try this other weapon type for now. And all of a sudden, the mechanics of the way that you interact with the combat of the game have completely flipped on its head. You can completely change the combat style in this game because there's 14 weapons. They all play completely differently. They're all completely viable, balanced, varied, very deep. The biggest problem with the weapons is they're woefully under-tutorialized. Like, just so badly tutorialized. But the game's been out for 6 years, so there's great resources on YouTube. And then it's like, oh, I understand now that when I use the insect glaive, I've got an insect friend on my arm, and I can send it to collect different colored essences from the monster, and when it returns to me, it increases my attack power and my movement set. And while that's happening, I can then vault into the sky and flip in the air because I extracted these essences from the monster. Understanding what those colors mean and how to access those different colors, and then how to then use that to use the intricacies of this particular weapon's bonuses is wild and so rewarding. It's such a rewarding minute-to-minute, second-to-second gameplay system. I'm just having an absolute ball. Nice. I can't stop playing it.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's is it like when you were saying it's like playing it now after like the resources of tutorialization and information have been sufficiently like filled in like outside of the game, is it kind of like playing, like picking up a Souls game or something that you didn't play on launch, and then if you want that ultimate version of that story, you're not just fumbling through being like, oh, well, that guy seems kind of cool, and then, well, I haven't seen him in 15 hours. Oh, this is their body. I wonder what I would have had to have done to keep him alive.
Well, there's nothing so intricate as that inside the game. There's definitely no side quests that hinge on, there's no branching paths or anything like that.
No, but like, but in terms of being able to like to know the steps, and like you write in terms of Souls game, it's often like a, if you haven't done it, then you fucked it. Like, and it's irreparable without like restarting the game.
If you didn't walk all the way back to the start, which you have to do because you haven't unlocked fast travel yet.
Yeah. But is this like a little bit like that, where it's like the riddle of having to learn the game part of it isn't there, so you can just get the distilled experience? Is that what you feel like you're getting?
It definitely feels like not only has the community risen to make up for the game's shortcomings, but which is so valuable. And turns out there's dozens of videos. There's so many. There's a whole. Turns out this game's really popular. There's a whole Monster Hunter YouTube niche, Jeremy. Would you believe it? And so that's good. It's good that they're there to do that. But in watching some of these videos, I also saw some footage of what the game looked like 6 years ago. And despite how poorly tutorialized it is now, it was worse when it came out.
Yeah.
So not only do the resources exist now, but Capcom have also backfilled it a bit and made it that bit more approachable, even still. And especially, again, once Iceborne came out and they improved and tweaked the weapons slightly when that came out. I haven't even gotten to any of the Iceborne content yet, but I've been able to play the base game with the Iceborne quality of life adjustments, which has been great. So, I mean, honestly, now is the best time to get into Monster Hunter, is what I'm feeling, because they keep having it on sale. Like, it was on sale. They had a Monster Hunter Humble Bundle. That is outrageously difficult to say.
Monster Hunter
Humble Bundle. But not only did they have the Monster Hunter Humble Bundle, which is where I got it, but then it was also on sale on Humble Bundle, on the Humble Store. And then when that sale ended, that it was a part of, a second sale started literally the next hour that had it at the same price.
Yeah, the Capcom sale.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now on Humble Bundle, you can find Monster Hunter on Humble Bundle for with or without the DLC or the Digital Deluxe. Let's say Monster Hunter World Iceborne, you can get for $25.
Yeah.
And you've been able to get it for that price for a month.
and if you're planning on picking it up on like PS4 and stuff, like there's a billion secondhand copies of it.
Yeah,
all the
it's
time.
also been on sale there too. I saw them promoting that at Gamescom when they were showing Wilds.
Yeah.
So not only are they sort of generating a bit more hype for the series with this big release of Wilds coming out, but also they're just saying, hey, get in, the water's great. And it is.
This is so a little bit tangential, but it reminds me of there is someone's job at Gearbox whose job it is to go into the main menu of Borderlands 2 and update the banner anytime a new piece of Borderlands content gets released or announced. Still, they have now put in the Borderlands 4 announcement trailer embedded into the Borderlands 2 main menu. Because I think that's
so funny.
That's
and
still
especially because I imagine they were desperate to get movie news off that front page because it's so bad.
Probably.
Borderlands 2, it's got 3,000 concurrents right now.
Yeah, no, like
that's good for a 12-year-old game.
That game is like immensely popular still. They still do like the whatever their shift key thing is. Like they still have the fucking giveaways for that.
Right.
Yeah,
cool.
like it's bonkers how popular that game is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So there's a couple of moments I guess I want to talk about, and then I'll handball off.
Mm-hmm.
With this, but one of them is I picked up the Niantic mobile game with this, which is Monster Hunter Now, and that's been really good because similarly that's been out for a while. They've sort of the Pokemon Go thing where that looked very different a year or two after it came out.
Yeah,
this is like you could do group hunts from further away, or you don't need to. There's not a requirement for you to be physically next to people to do a group hunt now. So there's things like that and. A lot of quests that like make it so you have a lot of like I got a lot of gear really quickly, and I haven't hit any grinding walls yet where it's like I can't complete the next mission because I'm not strong enough. I just am strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really good. I haven't hit any walls there, and that's been good. And so I was in the car with Sam and we were driving to somewhere and I had my phone out. And Sam was like, so what's the go with this? And I'm like, with what? And Sam's like, with Monster Hunter. Like, why has this one grabbed you? I'm like, it's got a good loop, but honestly, Sam, I don't know. I'm like, I don't get it. I actually don't quite understand why this has its hooks in me so bad.
Yeah, right.
So good. And I thought that was really funny. Because like Sam asking a very reasonable question, like, what's going on here? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It to find this whole like subgenre of games that's been here the whole time, and I've just not accessed it, and now I'm here. I'm like, whoa! It's been so fun. It's like if I discovered Souls games last month. You know what I mean? Like
this reminds me when I watched
by myself.
It's like when I watched The Matrix 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, you fucking seen this movie?
Well, this is sick. One of my favorite moments that I've had while playing it, I've played it a lot with Ollie, friend of the show.
Mm.
And one of my favorite moments was once we beat the main story campaign. Yeah. I haven't beat the main content yet, but they beat the campaign that had all of the cutscenes and the
final boss.
The shitty story missions that like were really not that good, but were kind of bombastic and set piecey, fighting a big volcano-sized molten monster guy. Those missions suck, and I skipped a lot of cutscenes. And like written stuff, so it's not that great. But when you finish that, you unlock high rank hunts. And you go out of low rank hunts into high rank, and you can go through all those areas, and all of the monsters you've already fought are like leveled up in difficulty and experience, and so you can start crafting higher tier stuff out of all of the enemies you've already faced, and they're all difficult again. And so it's this refreshing sort of regeneration of the loop. And so they sort of send you back to these starting areas like, oh, wow, one of these creatures that's normally in the forest is in the desert biome now. We need you to investigate and then hunt them. And so I'm in the desert biome looking for a normal Jagras lizard thing. And I'm like, oh, there's the Jagras. Let's fight it. And Ollie and I are fighting it. And then I'm like, and it's going fine. And then I'm like, did you hear the music change? And I turn around, and there's this thing I've never heard of before, never seen before. It's the biggest monster I've ever seen in the game thus far.
Yeah.
It's called like Basil Geese or Basil Goose or something. It's like Geuse. I just call it basil juice because that sounds like food items, and I think that's funny. But I turn around and I said, Ollie, run! We're just like, what the fuck is that? And his like name pops up on the screen with like a little title card, and the camera zooms in, and we're fighting this other lizard, and we're like, oh fuck! And it rears up on its back legs, and it drops. It's got like a chin and a tail covered in explosive drop pods, and it just drops them. And then after like 30 seconds, they explode. And they really hurt.
Yeah, I've seen this thing before.
But then also after you fight it for a minute or two, it like powers up and all of its drop pods start glowing, and they drop primed at that point. And it likes to fly up into the sky, crisscross above you, just dropping ordnance. And then the way it lands is it finds an area that both you are close to and is also close to more of its drop pods, and crash lands, skids into them. Doesn't take any damage because of course not, and sets off this big chain reaction explosion in the entire area. I really like that moment because all of the monster introductions in the previous part of the game, they're all part of it. They all have a cutscene. And, you know, they're pretty good. It's like, oh, I thought this lizard was intense, but look at this T-Rex monster that's just picked it up and thrown it at me. And now I have to fight the T-Rex, and now the gameplay starts. But it was all very scripted and all very, you know, I think the idea was to pull in sort of gamers who didn't necessarily have experience with the game so far. I think that's the sort of leaning with this. Yeah. But to be introduced to the biggest, toughest, scariest monster that I've ever seen in this game on a whim, just because it happened to be there, and they didn't tell us about it after being so carefully introduced each time along the way throughout the rest of the game. It was really special. It was a really special moment, and it's led to all of the future times where I've discovered things. Hasn't been anything quite like that specifically, but all those surprises in a hunt where you find something that wasn't meant to be there, or you find a variant of something that you recognized, or it's been great. It's been so good. I cannot recommend highly enough that people give Monster Hunter a go at the moment. You can try the Rise demo to get a brief feel for it, but it's so good. And everything coming out of Gamescom about Monster Hunter Wilds, is looking very, very exciting. It is looking
really exciting. Even as someone who like is not I've played it a handful of times. Like I've tried to get into Monster Hunter. It's just not for me, and that's okay. Wilds looks great.
Yeah, it does. It's so cool seeing they're really taking a shining to making it like a real graphical showcase. Like it looks like one of the most impressive games visually we've seen in this generation so far. And I wouldn't expect that from Monster Hunter really, but World did a similar thing when it came out, and they're really giving it they're making such a step forward with the franchise with this one seemingly, that I'm very excited to see it and experience it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have one question for you / one request, because I think I know the answer to the question. Have you seen the movie Tar?
No.
You should watch that movie.
I thought you were going to ask if I'd seen the Monster Hunter movie.
No, I've seen that movie. That movie's not good. You don't want to watch that movie. You should watch the movie Tar about the composer.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Why do you have to say that after Monster Hunter?
That's all I'm going to say.
Will I get it when I watch it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you will. I would really love for you to watch that movie like soon. Beyond what I'm like pushing you towards, it's also a great film.
Oh, I have heard.
Yeah. But also like, yeah. Don't Google.
Well, it's available for me to watch.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Don't Google like anything about it. Just
Isn't she in Fortnite?
No, she's not in Fortnite. But that was a hilarious Photoshop putting Lydia Tarr into Fortnite.
Yeah. Well, I think it was. I thought it was Succession.
Well, there was another one that I shared that was Succession, which you should also watch. Not for any video game adjacent reasons. Yeah. You should watch Tar.
Okay.
Cool. Any other Monster Hunter thoughts, feelings, opinions?
I love it so much.
I love it so much.
For those interested, I'm maining the Insect Glaive and Switch Axe, although I've just started a bit of time with the dual blades. It's crazy how different they all are, but they all have such cool ways to power them up once you understand them. Like, Jeremy, the Switch Axe is an axe, right? But it's like if you've got a sword with its shaft, and on one end is
as in
an
the blade? Like, do you mean like the...
No, because what it is it's not a blade. It's like a mechanical shaft.
Okay.
And on one side is an axe head, and that rests at the bottom. But when you pull it out, the axe head slides to the top.
Yeah.
And now you're wielding an axe, right? But on the backside of this shaft is a blade head. And you can switch it, and then the axe head slides down to the base of the thing again. It's no longer an axe, and the blade head rotates out, and it doubles the length of the now sword and makes it a heavy weapon all of a sudden, which also has elemental affinity or like status effect. So now you have this big fuck off sword that deals like elemental or status damage. It also generates elemental buildup. And then if you get the sword fully built up, you can do this thing called elemental discharge or zero-sum discharge, I think it's called, when it's fully built up.
It's a good name.
And if you just do it in the air, then you just sort of like have the sword lifting into the air and sort of glowing and sort of exploding a little bit. It sort of like pulses with energy. But if you do that initial thrust into any part of a monster, you'll climb onto it, jam this thing in there, and then the sword, glowing, pulsing with energy, just goes... and you get exploded off the back of this creature. Cool. And I can do that like 20, well, not 20, but like 10 times a fight if I'm efficient, if I'm really good. And the more good I am at that game, the more explosions I see. It's great.
I love Bloodborne trick weapons.
It's so cool.
Cool.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. Nice. That's sick.
So yeah, no, in short, no, I have nothing else to say.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to throw it to a break, and then when we're back, I've got some things to say about
We can hear from Jeremy. I can't wait to hear about how popular the time has been.
the world. We'll be back. You're just laughing.
Just laughing to myself.
Just laughing
Sorry.
at me asking if you're ready, and you're like, "Yep." Welcome back.
Jeremy, I have a very quick question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you see the Sonic 3 trailer?
I did see the Sonic 3 trailer.
I haven't seen either of those movies yet, but that's a good trailer.
Yeah, like it looks great.
That's a compelling trailer.
Yeah.
I want to see that movie.
Yeah, Keanu seems great as Shadow.
Yep.
Jim Carrey continues to rule as Robotnik.
Yep.
Idris Elba as Knuckles is still strange to me.
Yeah, me too. I haven't actually heard him speak in the role yet because he doesn't really speak in the trailer for 2.
Yeah, and that show is apparently terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the show's apparently dog shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Tails is great. Ben Schwartz continues to be very good as Sonic. James Marsden continues to be great. I am ready for the for the James Marsden comeback. Like I'm ready for him to have his day, right? Like
James Marsden rehabilitation.
Well, like not even rehabilitation because he's not like damaged goods. He just
I know.
Like he was in X-Men and he was a leading man for a little bit in a couple of movies, but he never became a big star. And
you're clearly forgetting about Superman Returns, where he plays not Superman.
Yeah, he plays Jimmy Olsen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and he's in Westworld. He's good in Westworld. He's in Jury Duty, that show where he plays James Marsden. He's good in that, but the only reason he's good in that show is because James Marsden isn't a big enough name that it became like that he didn't become bigger than the show. He was the perfect size for that show.
Yeah. Apparently he's in The Notebook.
Yeah, he's in The Notebook. Great film. Like he's in a lot of stuff, but he needs a John Wick style film, which is like, oh, he's got a franchise that's his. He needs a
that's a good point.
He needs
he's 50.
Oh, he's looking good for 50.
Well, I suppose you can when you've been in Hollywood for the last 30 years.
Oh yeah, but he's looking good for 50. He's just looking good. He's a good looking man. I don't want this because I think like it's time to move on. But in my mind, I would love for him to have one final shot at Cyclops. Like, give him a full give him the X-Men 97 treatment. Like, allow him to be the headstrong, confident leader, calling the shots, having to deal with shit. I read a thing recently that I think I agree with is I don't want any more solo X-Men movies. I think it's time for the X-Men to be the X-Men. Considering
how many of those we had, I think that's a very reasonable take.
Yeah. And how many of them weren't that great. But I think that we'll get another Wolverine movie, honestly. You
think we will?
Yeah, I think we will.
Yeah, probably in the next 3 to 5 years. Hey,
yeah, it'll be Hugh Jackman again.
What? No, he's done.
No, he's not. No,
really?
Based on everything that came after Deadpool and Wolverine, he loves it too much, and now he's divorced, and so he can sort of put a bit more time.
Is he?
Yeah, he got divorced this year. I texted Mum being like, "Hugh Jackman's single."
You know how I was almost in a cult?
Yes.
I hear he's in that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman has a funny thing where he's got weird connections.
That's such a random. I wasn't that almost into a cult. Everyone these people were like, oh, Hugh Jackman's in the School of Philosophy.
He's kind of mates with the Packers.
Oh no!
Yeah, he's got rich friends. Very rich and powerful friends.
I mean, that's because he's
very rich
and powerful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get more from him. Like he'll either be in the Avengers Secret Wars or or we'll get another fucking Wolverine film. There's been
Sorry, you said Andor, and I was like,
yeah, no. There has been some speculation it would be an adaptation of like Wolverine Revenge or something, and it will be like another Logan-esque film, which I'm like, man, like we've like
they redo Logan.
Like just I know, right? I'm just like fucking hell. Like we need something new. My God.
Yeah.
Like there's a joke in Deadpool and Wolverine, which I still haven't seen, but there's a joke in it which is like you'll be here until you're 90 or something, and like that's like that would be funny.
Like, haha, but maybe that's just too real.
Yeah. There's a final little tangent before we move on to my soapbox. When Disney had their big thing where they announced all the new Marvel stuff and they announced RDJ's back. That was a Comic-Con. That's right. It was when they announced RDJ's back as Doctor Doom. Someone was interviewing Florence Pugh, and they were talking, and she's like, and they're like, "What's your reaction to Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom?" And she's like, "Oh, what? Like, I didn't know." Okay. And so like they had the video up on their phone, and they just quickly showed her to give her some context, and you can see the next 5 decades of her career like flashing before her eyes of like the like, oh God, I'm here forever. It's genuine.
That's so funny.
It's the genuine Simpsons like don't forget you're here forever like meme. Yeah. Like it is. Yeah. It is.
Don't forget we own you.
Yeah. Like it's things are bad over there.
Yeah. I still can't really get behind that decision so far, but
I don't know anyone that is
another
excited.
Discussion.
I genuinely don't know anyone that is thrilled about it. I've spoken to a lot of people about it, and no one has been like, fuck yeah, so excited. My friends that are the biggest Iron Man fans, like Robert Downey Jr., like fans ever, are like, what? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. fans. And like, they're pissing on the legacy of that character that they built up and sent off so effectively.
And it's not Tony Stark, it's Victor Von Doom is the thing.
Yeah.
It's not even that they're making Tony Stark Doctor Doom. They're making the guy that looks a lot like Tony Stark, Victor Von Doom.
They could have hired so many people who weren't
literally
Robert Downey Jr.
Get a Romani actor. Like, like just put literally anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get Cillian Murphy.
I heard that a couple of times and I was like, ooh. Ooh.
Anyway, speaking of bad, so
that's a hell of a segue.
Second half of the show, I had a thing few months ago where like I messaged you one night and I was like, I'm writing something because I'm mad, not because I've got a point to it. and basically since I started like just putting down ideas onto pieces of paper digitally, I have not stopped being mad at it, and I need to like get it out. So it's been a while since we've done this. There's a whole number of reasons for that, but like
you mean the podcast?
Yeah, the podcast, you and me. Yeah. A whole number of reasons for that. One of the biggest ones has been just everything falling apart. And sometimes it makes things hard to like, it makes it hard for us to do some of this, right? Sometimes, like
it's definitely felt tricky to be. It's been a little difficult this year to be excited about this industry.
Yes. And to be, like optimistic and to to an extent like enjoy the work, like and that's not to say that like
to like contribute,
and that's not to say that when we're doing it we're not enjoying it, but there's a sense of industry.
I fucking hate doing this, Jeremy.
Yeah, just me in your closet. I've actually got a gun like pointed at the back of your to your back, being like talking to the microphone.
I can't wait for this to be over, Jeremy.
There's been like a sense of dread around like the future of like this style of like this media, basically, like games media. And it's not new. Like last year was terrible with it. It wasn't great the year before. But it is only continued this year.
Yeah.
Last year was a lot of layoffs for games media. There was a lot more layoffs of game developers. Like we covered that in an episode. But like there's been like just a dramatic shrinking of games media this year that has been very real and seemingly like it can just sort of come out of nowhere, basically. Like it can just happen in a day as it's happened. So when I started writing this, it was just after 9 closed down Pedestrian Group, which then meant Kotaku, Australia specifically. Channel 9, the Australian broadcast company, shut down didn't shut down Pedestrian, but shut down the licenses that Pedestrian had, and then folded a bunch of stuff in, and then let go of a lot of people and closed a bunch of outlets on a Monday. And since then, when I started writing this, it happened a handful of other times after it. Most famously, the biggest one of the year, honestly, has been Game Informer. Right, and like.
Oh, we're putting it all in one place, man.
Yeah,
we're gonna get this critical mass of
I know.
of dread and fucking pit in my stomach.
Yeah. And Game Informer hit really hard. Not just because Game Informer was like a really important outlet for games everywhere.
And has been for the history of games media.
And has been for ages. It's also like it's somewhat personal to us because you and I both read Game Informer. We used to sell it when we fucking worked at EB Games. We went to a PAX panel yonks ago, which included Dave Milner, who at that point was the EIC of Game Informer Australia, which then got closed in 2017, I think. And so but Game Informer for a long time has been a pillar, like this load bearing like foundation of games media. And then suddenly one day it wasn't just shut down and everyone was let go. The website is now gone. The website
it was erased.
Yeah, the website is linked to a landing page now, which is just a like goodbye. They nuked their social media accounts. By they, I mean GameStop. I don't mean anyone that worked at Game Informer. They were
Game Informer's parent company.
Yes, yeah. And so the entire legacy of Game Informer now has been shattered. Like the written,
the online legacy, at least it's got a print physical legacy.
And there are backups of some of the articles out there through like the Wayback Machine and archive.org. But like it has been like deeply like damaged. Because the other thing is Game Informer still ranks incredibly high on Google. And so if you're Googling like you know, the history of Halo, like that article still pops up number 1 and you just can't see it anymore. If you Google game releases 2024, they are still the highest ranked page on there for one of the most searched terms in games.
Yep.
And the website just leads to nowhere. So taking a step back, the way I'd structured part of my just rant into this Notion article, it's divided into 3 sections. There is how we got here, where we're going, and what's happening now. how we got here is complicated because it's like there are so many things that led to some of the largest, most important games outlets in the industry just disappearing overnight. But as with a lot of current terrible culture, like political culture, coverage culture, journalist culture, world culture, unfortunately, a lot of it starts with Gamergate. Like, that's how far back we're going, because that's how far back, honestly, you need to go.
Yeah.
Because Gamergate, if you're not familiar, because it's been a while now, was an online harassment campaign directed towards women in the games industry. There are other places that will give you a better like overall history of like the harassment campaign against like Anita Sarkeesian and like Brianna Wu as well before she became awful. Like there's a lot of things that happened that caused that, and anyone that tells you that it was about, you know, it was about
ethics
like
in games journalism,
yeah, right, is either a grifter or misinformed or both. Because it was a harassment campaign. That's what Gamergate was. It destroyed people's lives, and like, you know, people like Anita Sarkeesian are still like receiving vitriol on a daily basis today. What what Gamergate led to is not just a harassment campaign inside of games. It led to a whole lot of things. The largest thing that Gamergate led to is Donald Trump being elected to office. Gamergate has a direct like line to that, because what it became was the modern right-wing conservative culture movement, culture war against, you know, more diversity in media, in culture, in spaces, in public view. Like it was a rejection of that, and it was a hate campaign against it, and that is just the playbook for modern conservatism. There's a lot of other there's a lot of other things going on, like, you know, there's a whole lot of other right-wing movements that started around, you know, Bush and stuff, and then followed through onwards from there. But Gamergate is directly responsible because it popularized people like Milo Yiannopoulos, who was one of like who's a British right-wing like commentator, like a stone's throw away from actually being a Nazi. He's had a whole lot of links to people like Richard Spencer, who is a genuine Nazi. There are like, they have fought since then, but like, he's still a right-wing guy. He tried to help Kanye West get elected. He was a part of his campaign. Like, he's around doing stuff. He didn't disappear like I think a lot of people thought that he did. He was directly like involved in Gamergate, and then was directly involved in like being one of the like part of the new wave of the alt-right on the internet during 2016 and the election around then. What also happened around the same time was this attack on journalism and media in a way of discrediting them. Making them think that this narrative around, you know, journalists are shills. They take money from publications, from publishers, from developers. They have an agenda. They're not with the best interests of gamers in mind, whatever that means. And that this argument that journalists are there to ruin games. And you see this everywhere, right? Like one of the most prominent anti diversity subreddits. One of the most prominent Gamergate subreddits is a subreddit literally called Kotaku in Action. Like it's like and they've been around for a long time. Like it's if you ever I don't know if you ever went on NeoGAF back in the day, but like when everyone went from NeoGAF to Reset era, if you go on NeoGAF now, it's just full of Gamergaters, and it's like horrific over there.
Oh, that's why people left it.
It was one of the many reasons why people left NeoGAF.
Yeah.
This idea that like people that are journalists are like elitist. Like it comes from the right wing, like bad faith argument that is their cultural war, and they like to begin this conversation in a place of bad faith, and they don't even allow a conversation to reach reality a lot of the time, which is why anyone that ever goes on like a Colin Moriarty or Screw Attack Craig or any of those like places to have a debate is kidding themselves and needs to realistically stop giving those places oxygen, because they don't fucking go anywhere. It's a useless debate to have. One of the things that they hate the most is like politics in games, and that's because they are of this opinion that games can exist without it, because one, conservatives don't understand art, which I've said on this podcast many times, but also they feel like if there is a deeper meaning to something, I think that has a genuine challenge to them. The concept of attaching a deeper meaning means that there must have been someone who made it. And for someone to have made something with a deeper meaning means that they have to humanize it. And it hurts them when someone has attached a deeper meaning to something that they disagree with, because oftentimes deeper meaning is actually quite affecting. And so
I just have to say, I feel you're making a number of unsubstantiated leaps. I see how you are reaching these statements, but I do feel you may be jumping one or two steps ahead with each of them.
Am I wrong?
I think you might be, yes.
Okay.
I think you may be going a little too far with that conclusion. I can see what you're saying. Like, I have, for example, when we talk about, meaning in games, or in media in general, I, for a time, especially when I was younger, was someone who didn't enjoy looking for and finding and pulling apart the deeper, more nuanced meaning in a text. I didn't like thinking of something as a text. I'm like, maybe it was, it was a very high school sort of thing to say. It was just sort of a representation, I guess, of where I was. Just sort of, I wasn't really in a place where I was mature enough to appreciate something on that level. Not to say people are or aren't. I wasn't, but there was a time there where I felt like if I'm reading into it, then, or like if I'm trying to read into it, then I'm going to miss the message, or I'm going to, all of a sudden it became this very intellectual thing. And then I attached my self-worth to my ability to connect with this piece of media. And then all of a sudden, my self-worth was attached to my like spare time and things I enjoyed in my hobbies. You know what I mean? And so I kind of rejected that. I was like, I don't want to feel bad about myself. And that there's so many layers to this, right? Like now we're deep in like my psyche of why does that even make me think of that kind of thing? And we don't have to go there. But I could see someone who rejects that who rejects that way of analyzing something, engaging with something, and seeing if there is a message in that, and looking at the symbolism and looking at the sort of the message of something or the context of something. How we can talk about, people want politics out of Star Wars, but it's a show about revolution. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's a series built. It's called Star Wars. It's about people at war, which means there are beliefs and ideologies that are clashing. Like, it is fundamentally political. Yeah. People may enjoy it on a surface level, but I think to then say that it's, keep politics out of Star Wars, I think that is a naive and impossible take at the end of the day. All this for me to say, I don't think there are people there who not necessarily, maybe there are some people, but I don't, to disagree with with your premise there of, to attach a deeper meaning is to humanize it, and to humanize it then makes them feel bad for the way that they're like that's a very I I guess, a pessimistic way of looking at it.
I would never be pessimistic into a microphone, Kerry. You know me.
So yeah, I don't want to railroad you, and I want you to continue, but I did just want to put my 2 cents in there.
But I also think it's like what I mean by that is that it's not that there's a rejection of like wanting to comprehend the deeper meaning because that means humanizing a piece of art. What I mean is that there is an outwards rejection of humanizing a piece of art, and then that because that means that they would have to then engage with it on a level that is more than the text. And so I mean to almost come at it as from the opposite direction that you were talking about just then, where there's a refusal to engage flatly at all. Like, you know, like, and you see it all the time with people like Elon Musk talking about Star Wars, or talking about like he tweeted about Star Trek earlier today, talking about how good would it be if Starfleet Academy could exist. And a whole bunch of Star Trek actors chimed in being like, you understand that if you wanted Starfleet to like exist in the real world, you would fucking hate it, right? Like like, and there's this wonderful thing about the when I say the big conservative minds, I'm using a double meaning there because I don't think there are any. But like when we're talking about the more popular conservative minds, they often love a lot of the text that hates them.
Sure.
Like if can you imagine like the King of England watching Star Wars and going, man, I hate the Empire. like you are literally a king of an empire.
Yeah.
Like
of a modern day empire.
Like they're often the baddies for a reason, right? And so for them, that is why so often they have to flatly refuse the text. The meaning in the text is because if they do, then it like ruins their own like point of view. It happens. It
challenges them
time and time and time again. Like one of the things that I remember, there was like one of the Trumps was tweeting at one of the Musks, making a Matrix reference about blue pill and red pill, and Lana Wachowski responded to that tweet being like, "I hate fucking all of you." Like, and it's because again they truly are unable to comprehend understanding in any of this, even the most surface level understanding. Like, I'm not talking about going deep into like, you know, Matrix being a trans allegory. I'm just talking really basic stuff around control and like, and breaking free. And
the system.
Yeah. They simply do not understand it, because if they did understand it, then they wouldn't be who they are. Which is another reason why a lot of conservatives have a fake idea of what they even believe in. Like a lot of them, I truly believe, don't even actually genuinely believe the things that they say. It just makes them very rich. Like it happens quite a lot. To bring it back to games, what this has meant, it is like talking about like rejecting media for reading into things too much, for bringing meaning to pieces of art and games, and to do analysis of stuff, and to talk about why like some of the messages in games are so like popular or so important. It has caused like a rejection of that, to then say, well, I don't trust games journalists. They seem to have this bizarre thing that I don't want to engage with. I don't trust them. When someone reads into a game and does a very positive review on a game because they've read into it, they've gotten this deeper meaning about something that was obviously very gratifying for the reviewer. And then someone refuses to engage with it on that level. They don't understand that meaning. And so they go, well, this is terrible. Actually, you must have been paid. It has caused this rift of suddenly there isn't a critical voice in games anymore, because a lot of the people that are trying to engage with games on a very like simple, like, is this good, is this not level, don't want to engage with like a level of critique, because they have put this entire blanket over like this like games media industry as a thing that like they're all in cahoots. They're all together trying to like push an agenda forward. And it has then snowballed into, the term fake news used by Trump in the election. Like it's all part of that same conversation. It's all the same talking points. That's how we started to get here. The other side of it, the other side of that is this argument about like games are worse now, which you see a lot, like people talking, like comparing like Halo 3 to Halo Infinite, or like older Call of Duties to new Call of Duties, and games that had, like might have launched with a multiplayer, a single player, like a horde mode and a theater mode, like an entire suite of options. Like they often don't launch like that anymore. A lot of the time now, games are launching sometimes unfinished, sometimes quite buggy, in various states of optimization, and sometimes like lacking in features a lot of the time. A lot of the games that we play feel like they don't have as many features as they might have had in the past. And that's not because... It's not because of women, as a lot of the grifting talking points like to say. A lot of it is because games are bigger now. They are more complex now, but also like things are more expensive now. Games are more expensive than they've ever been. And we're getting to a point now in games where we've spoken about in the past about like the collapse of AAA, or how AAA isn't sustainable to an extent. Like if some studios are one failure away from collapsing. Some studios like Tango, for example, are 0 failures away from collapsing and released a very successful game and still got shut down by Microsoft. Thankfully, they were picked up by another company, which name I forget at the moment, and they will hopefully continue, in a way that is meaningful. But like things are very, very, very expensive now to make. And there was a weird moment during COVID where there was a lot of spending happening in the games industry. Everybody was at home. Everybody was buying games. They were playing games. There was a reason for games to come out during COVID that kind of delayed this collapse of AAA, this reckoning of its unsustainability. We've spoken at length in the past about Sony's first party lineup and how it is dramatically different to what it was 10 years ago. Like the unfortunate punching bag, which I sometimes feel bad about using, but I think it's a really good indicator of what I'm talking about, is Days Gone being a game that didn't hit, and for Studio Bend to continue to making Days Gone games, for Studio Bend to allow them to make their own IP, it needed to hit bigger than what it did. And it wasn't even a failure. It just wasn't as big as it needed to be.
It's just the risk you need to take with AAA development to make a game of that size and scope and fidelity is so great. It's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, totally.
Which means not only do you need to make back hundreds of millions of dollars at a baseline to break even, a lot of companies are banking on these making much more than that, generating them money, not just breaking even because they're making art for the sake of art. It's a business decision. And
at this point, I think like Sony is looking at their games not even just as games anymore. Like if you want to make a game hit, it has to be a game that will hit on console and PC as an explosion, and also have the potential to be a TV show later. I think that's where they've got this bizarre framing at the moment, which I really hope that they like change course at some point, because I think it's weird. But the reason we're getting a remake of Until Dawn is not because Sony really wanted to remake Until Dawn. It's because there's that movie that's coming out next year that has just entered production.
It's such a weird project. I keep forgetting it's happening, and every time someone mentions it, I'm like, why?
Yeah. Like Uncharted, and then led into the film. The Last of Us is now a TV show. Up until recently, Horizon was also a live action project, which has since been put on ice. But like, there's
a God of War thing coming.
There's a God of War thing coming. There's
Twisted Metal, Gran Turismo.
Twisted Metal is the only one that I kind of don't really get. Like, I think that it's cool they made that show, but like, we haven't thought about Twisted Metal since like PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Like
when it didn't really do well.
Yeah, it's that one. That one's its own weird outlier. I don't really know what happened there, but like,
there's a Gravity Rush something coming too, isn't there?
Yeah, that does sound familiar.
It's a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they need stuff to hit bigger than they've ever needed it to hit. And so it's not just that games are worse, it's that games are expensive and people are expensive. The economy is on the verge of recession and has been for the past 8 months. Like wages are not actually going higher, and so people are not actually buying games. And so when these games come out, we look at Suicide Squad, or we look at some of the other live service focused games that have come out over the past 18 months, if they don't hit early, they don't actually have the time to build up an audience over a couple of years of development.
I mean, I think, can I even just say now, this is the week after Concord launched. It launched last Friday, I think.
Totally.
And that game had 2 betas, one of them open to PlayStation Plus subscribers, one of them free. Those happened a month ago, and then the game came out this month. And the way this game has come out, admittedly, it hasn't done very well. But the thing that's I've been sorry, I'll say my thing and jump off it because I'm at risk of derailing.
No, it's all right.
Have you seen with Concord how it took like 12 hours of the game being out before people called it dead? You know what I mean? Reviewers didn't get time to review it because it's a live service game.
They were calling it dead before it came out.
No, I know. Well, yes, that's true with the betas as well.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
But like, it's a good game. It's a game that hasn't had the chance to spin up yet. And because it had so much time for it to come forward without like reviews saying, hey, which most of the reviews are saying of like, hey, this is a decent game.
Yeah.
It's got some sort of boring modes, but the heroes play great. The guns feel good. There's some decent progression. It needs a bit more juice. I hope they could do something with it to keep me hooked. But I kind of didn't want to stop playing once I loaded it up. Like, so many people have said that, but no one gave it the chance because of, admittedly, the art style doesn't seem to be doing it for many people. It doesn't seem to be appealing to an audience enough, which is a problem. But then, because they couldn't quite appeal to that much of an audience, and then the people who are interested tried it and then were like, oh, it's interesting. I might see if I buy it later on sale. Can't wait to buy this day one. Dead game. Over.
Yeah.
Dead. Like, no chance. The amount of jokes. Anytime someone mentions Concord in an episode of a podcast of anything, all the comments are just making jokes at Concord's expense. It's been less than a week. It hasn't been out 7 days yet. And it's like, not only is it dead, but like everyone's been kicking it for the last week too. And there's something about that feels so, like, I get why it's happened, and maybe it's not wrong to call it that either, but like, what else were they supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, aside from maybe launch free to play, like, it was such an impossible situation, I feel like, for this team at this point to either scrap it 3 years ago or commit and try and do something with it. And it's just, damned if you do, damned if you don't. That whole team, I really feel for them.
Yes and no. Like, I think that, like, not to go too far off onto a Concord train, but like, I think, like, yeah, choo-choo. It feels like a game that could have been popular 6 years ago. Like, it doesn't feel like a modern game. It's not presented as a modern experience for multiplayer shooters. It has a higher than ever barrier to entry in terms of, like, people are just not buying games at the moment because they just don't have the level of disposable income.
But also, like, people aren't buying competitive shooters.
They're not.
They're all free.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing. Like, I think that there's a whole host of reasons why that game, like, showed up like dead on arrival. But I think that there has become an unfortunate obsession with concurrent users, in like in YouTube videos talking about, like, is a game dead? Is a game alive? Like, this is...
Even in media, IGN and like Paul Tassi at Forbes, they'll report on concurrents.
Totally. And like, I think that like sometimes it's important. I think it is important for a game like Concord because like when you're like sitting at 600 players or less, it is legitimately difficult to even get into a match. And so that's a problem. I think when it comes to single player games, when it comes to games that are not inherently multiplayer, even like I think that the argument that like Helldivers 2 is dead now because they're dipping below like 10,000 players concurrently or whatever. It's like this is not a useful way to engage with anything. Like this doesn't mean anything. People are playing with their friends or they're not. Maybe matchmaking is taking a little bit longer, but like that doesn't mean it's a dead game. That game has a purchase price. Like it's a very different like thing happening over there. And so I think this leads partly into the earlier stuff of like, this is not a genuinely interesting way to engage with media a lot of the time. I think it's important in some instances, like I said, but engaging with a single player game by how many people are playing it at any given moment is a ridiculous way to engage with most things. No one looks at like it, and it spawned off this ridiculous obsession with like movie box office results and Grand Theft Auto 5 being the most profitable piece of media in 24 hours of all time, or the fastest piece of media to make $1 billion or whatever the hell it fucking was. Like there are so many useless engagements with media, which spawns from like people who want to genuinely engage with something like this in a meaningful way, not being able to have a job anymore. Like the more places like Game Informer shut down, the more places like Vice, like Kotaku AU, like other places disappear, the less interesting coverage we're going to get. I have seen so many times over the past few weeks developers of developers that work in indie games, solo developers, small teams being like, we're launching our game in 3 weeks and we have had so little coverage. We've had a demo up, we've reached out to the press. People can't cover our game at the moment, not because they're slammed. They are slammed, but because there are so few people, there are so few outlets left doing media that there just aren't enough like column inches. Like we've gone back to the days of like newspaper like fighting over column inches, but it's journalists fighting for like employability. Like there just isn't that room. And so like there are studios now that are saying like, we're launching our game and we think it's incredible, and this game Arco that I want to try and pick up this weekend, like Edge magazine gave it a 9 out of 10, which they don't do that often. And no one, like not no one, but like at the time when I saw that tweet that Edge gave it a 9, they had like 3 other reviews or something. It was one reviewer saw it, picked it up, loved it, wrote about it, and no one else has the time or job to do it. It's an absolute fucking mess. And a lot of that is because, like, of a handful of reasons. These places are disappearing because they're not getting the readership that they used to, but also because of the companies that own the outlets are obsessed with growth, this ridiculous thing that is impossible to achieve. Google frequently change their search engine algorithms all the time. When they did their big change 6 months ago now, it decimated some sites. There were some sites that used to rank at who can't even get into the top page anymore. When they change how they rank certain things, they forced it back into, if you are selling certain things on your website, then Google can sometimes get a cut of those sales or the ads in those websites then get boosted higher. And so if you're not actually selling something, then you don't get the ranking anymore, which is one of the reasons that shop fronts have started to open up their own outlets. Like Epic Games have got their own like news outlet, and there's the Xbox Wire and PlayStation Blog. These are not journalism sites. These are places where there are copywriters doing journalism adjacent work, but they're working for the company that they're writing about. And so,
well, to be fair, I do know some people who are writing for that, and they are doing good writing. Totally. You're right. It's being paid for to help this platform, which is primarily a store.
Totally. The quality of the writing is not a thing that I've got an issue with. The issue I've got is that, like, PlayStation Blog is not going to write about how Concord isn't doing very well on launch.
No.
They're going to write about an interview they've got, an exclusive interview they've got with the lead developer of Concord. And, like, that's tricky. That's real tricky right there. I don't blame anyone for working there, because they're one of the few places that aren't just letting go of everybody all the time, because they're at least making some money. I will not slight anyone for picking up those jobs. But when it comes to some of those bigger outlets, suddenly they just don't have the traction anymore. I saw David from Vooks talk about it on Twitter recently, that he's hitting the upper limit of the bandwidth on Vooks, the website, and his website isn't even making enough ad revenue to cover the hosting.
God, wow.
He's like looking at having to possibly increase like his bandwidth on the site, and he's not even making enough at the moment to cover that cost through the site.
I mean, talk about dead internet theory. Like, you can't fucking make a profitable website even if you've maxed out the capacity of your servers with traffic. Like,
that and
what the fuck?
And the complete like destruction of social media algorithms has caused like fewer click-throughs from Facebook. Instagram
many fewer less from Twitter.
Yeah. Like, Twitter is basically dead now because they keep posting like Nazi stuff, like, and advertisers don't want to go there. And they've like,
and also they've been limiting their link posting ability as well.
Also that. Instagram is not a place for like leaving Instagram. It's a place for staying inside of Instagram. And TikTok, you can't even say the word, like, you get censored if you say the word gun, right? Like, it's a mess over there as well. And so all of these places are so heavily filtered that people are now having to stay inside of those apps to get their coverage. But those places don't actually make money unless you're doing sponsored posts. And if you're doing sponsored posts, then you're part of the marketing for the thing that you can't really talk critically about anymore, because then the money isn't there anymore. And so it's just created this cycle of advertising without any genuine critical thought. And like
a vacuum.
Yeah, and like a lot of things in the past with games, we're at the forefront of it, right? Games move so fucking quick that we're always there at the start of any of these horrendous trends. The other thing that a lot of the social media accounts do is they make a lot of money from the people that I spoke about at the beginning of this segment, the right-wing, like, you know, the hot takes, the inflammatory comments, you know, like drive the engagement, but the weaponized engagement.
Negativity.
Yeah, the negativity, right? A lot of what they do is they have created this world where they reject critical thought of games. For example, they reject the conversation around critical thought, which causes more people to engage with games less critically than they ever have in the past, which has then allowed the larger companies to continue to make money off of that because they're getting some really good engagement out of that. They're staying in the app more. These are really like hot button issues, all that stuff, right? Which allow then places like Google, Twitter, Facebook, they then rank those higher because they're doing really well, right? Like they're getting a lot of engagement on these posts. So we're going to crank up those dials. So those like, we're going to encourage this kind of content, which then allows the cycle to continue straight back to the beginning again, because all they're doing is cranking those dials up. These engagements, like these engagement baiting posts are getting even more. You see it on Twitter all the time. Anytime any blue check account posts some whack take about something that no one is saying, it's because they get, like, on Twitter, you literally get paid for it if you're in the Twitter blue nonsense. it has caused this cycle of reduction of criticality into like grifters getting more money, into algorithms going, well, this is doing some really good numbers, so let's then funnel those, so then there's even more critical thought being destroyed. It's a horrendous cycle. And the other side of that is like influencers, which is the same sort of thing, but they're just like the side product of, well, now they can replace the critical thought. But instead of having to go to make a really good product in the hope that a journalist will look at this and go, hey, this is great, I love this, everyone should play this, they don't need to do that anymore.
They buy an opinion.
They can just buy an opinion. Why would you give a review code to a journalist when you can give it to 18 influencers that are getting paid to do positive opinion? You know that thing
getting paid to say what they're being told to be said.
You know the thing that all the right-wing grifters were complaining about way back when, you know, about like having to have board opinions and all of this stuff about like review scores and stuff.
How can we trust you if you're going to be bought off? And
anyone that says I don't read reviewers, like I don't read game reviews now, I just watch the streamers that I like to get my opinion on stuff, is absolutely kidding themselves if they think that is an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
You don't get that. And then the moment there's a blur between those two pieces of content, you know, one of the reasons I've stopped watching Linus Tech Tips is because they blurred the line between their advertised videos, their sponsored videos about products, with their critique, with their reviews, with their their numbers based their data on certain things. They would blur the line between sponsored content and opinionated content so much that I never knew if I was watching an advertisement or not. They have, you know, hashtag ad, they sponsored this video, whatever. The best versions,
the ones that are really integrated, like where the whole video is sponsored by X and they show it off in the video and it's all about how that video is so good for this or that.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. And like, again, the reason they take that money is because it's some of the only money that's out there at the moment, right? Like I see it on IGN all the time. GameStop recently just changed their profile picture to like a Diablo thing. I don't know what the hell's happening over there. It's happening more and more and more, and it is causing just this unfortunate blur between opinionated content and sponsored content. That means that it is so hard to get a genuine, unfiltered opinion on things as a part of mainstream culture and review now. It's a mess. It's a complete fucking mess. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something as
well. Look, I'm not 100% sure. I've got vague thoughts here and there. You're right. It is really hard, and it is a mess right now. One of the things that makes me really sad is just that some people are, you know, when we talk about negativity and bad faith arguments, you can see a lot of people ready to pick a fight, even if they're the only ones sort of starting it. You know what I mean? Like games like Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong this year have become these preemptive battlegrounds for this culture war, right?
Yeah.
Where one side takes it up as their next bastion of how this game is not woke, and because it's not woke, it's going to be great, and because it's not woke, it's going to be targeted by the press and woke media. And, you know, then when those games do all right, like 7s, 8s, 9s, in the press, in the critical sphere, in the sphere that we have been told will reject it for the sake of it, reject it because of an agenda, and then it is not rejected because those games are being assessed on their own individual merit, which is the whole point of what the games media does. It's ignored that that's how those games have been received, and instead it's become a victory for anti-woke games, and it's become a victory for games that fly in the face of virtue signaling and all this. There's actually a really good article that came out from Paul Tassi yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. It's a bit more of a analytical, opinion-driven piece. It's less about like live service games. It's called The Woke War, why the right believes it's dominated gaming and TV in 2024. And it speaks to some of this, as right. He talks about Black Myth, Stellar Blade, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, The Acolyte, and he talks about, you know, the arguments that are brought forward about particular games. He talks about Concord, the arguments that are brought forward about why they are or are not a win for this camp or the other, and then says, actually what happened is the press received it like this. You know, Concord hasn't done well because of its price tag in a landscape that values free-to-play shooters now. It, like, that's why it hasn't done well. It's not because they've got pronouns in the character bios. Like, so the thing that really I find very sad is that, you know, the people who feel the need to defend something that they enjoy, like Black Myth or Stellar Blade, maybe it's because they like buxom women with jiggle physics in skin tight clothes flipping around the screen so they can watch them and ogle. Maybe that's why they like that. Or maybe they just, I don't know. Who knows? What, like, there's so many reasons why you could latch onto these games, these examples, as being anti-woke, and why that is something that you want to champion. But coming to an argument that you kind of create, assuming the other people's position and shouting them down because of something they haven't even said yet, I find to be so... It is so dishonest. You know, whether these people realize it or not, whether they realize that they're you know, holding space for that dishonesty, as it feels to me, of you know, being ready to fight for something that maybe no one else wants to fight for. Or if they do, it's only because they
ignore that.
It's the cupboard behind the curtain.
Pay attention.
Jeremy's green screen just fell down, everyone.
Don't pay attention to the bald spot behind the green screen.
So what am I saying? These arguments that are sort of being like pre-started, you know, like prepared ahead of time, I find so just sad.
It's bad faith. It's always bad faith, because they like. And like fucking Grums does it all the time, like, who's become just the like de facto leader of this like anti-woke nonsense. He will like, it's a common thing for people like him to start to claim anything that is leaning any way, shape or form into his camp of like, you know, like has conventionally attractive women, like, or has no women, like, you know, like, or like is like a white man protagonist or whatever. Then the moment anyone like looks into it, they then find out, actually, no, like, turns out the developers of this, like, you know, are like really progressive or whatever, and it's like, oh, they're really into this, and then he'll just immediately swap sides the second it goes against him. This happened with Stellar Blade when the game came out, and there was this skin for the main character, and they updated it.
Was in like a beta or something or
like
demo.
That. Yeah, and they updated it, and they put a little bit more like clothing on the character, and it's still very revealing character, but like they put a little bit more on this one specific thing, and then he rallied against it, being like, oh my god, like the woke mob then turned, like, you know, censored the you know, the vagina that was out a minute ago in my porn video game, and then the developer then came out and was like, no, like, we always had plans for this, it would just like we just think this looks better, like, and they're so far removed from this conversation that is happening because it's fucking actually minuscule.
Did you see the thing that happened with Stellar Blade after that? Like 4 weeks after launch, they added, with the New Game Plus update, I think, or something, they added a bunch of updates of updated like suits and skins, including the versions of those skins that got replaced with the very barely slightly more covered up versions with the less covered up versions at the same time.
Right.
Which is like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like,
You're right. It's a mess.
It's a complete mess, and it's always a bad faith thing. And like so many of these Gamergate types have like destroyed the ability to have a legitimate conversation around certain things and engage with a lot of these pieces of media in any meaningful way. And that has led to like a destruction of industry because they've been rewarded for it time and time again. And it has just led to an industry that we look at now. We look at in Australia, for example, where there are 2 full-time games media employees that work for a Australian media outlet in Australia left. There are 2, and they're both a Games Hub. And
right.
there are other full-time like games employees, but none of them work for Australian companies. Like, and even then, there's very few.
Like Press Start now works for a parent company because they got bought.
Well, they don't,
and they don't have many paid employees anyway.
Well, not to go too inside baseball, but I don't know if they have any full-time games employees anymore. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I mean, I was thinking of Shannon, but you're right. He's working on a bunch of different things.
Yeah, like he works for the parent company now and does other stuff as well. You know, there are people that work in IGN Australia, like in Australia still. There are people that work for, like Plunkett lives in Australia, and he obviously works for the company that he started, which is Aftermath. But like, it's not an Australian company. IGN Australia doesn't exist. Sorry, Kotaku Australia doesn't exist. And that's all that's left. That is a place that you can get employment from anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the other thing that people may not necessarily realize about Kotaku AU closing, that even although it was like, 3 full-time positions, it's like, you know, that sounds like not so much, especially in the wake of so many places closing where they lose a dozen or 2 or 3 dozen or 100 people all at once. But
that was half.
It was not only was it half, but it was a massive avenue for freelancers to get their names out there, to cut their teeth, like to really sort of get into the industry and make a name for themselves, and to try things out. And now people have to wade into the international market if they're in Australia, which is becoming increasingly closed off in a number of different areas to people working for those corporations from outside territories. So it definitely feels like we are being us, like, not just media in general, which I feel this discussion has been more about, but now talking more about Aussie games media, I feel like we are being siloed, you know, not because of grifters necessarily, but, you know, the way the industry is shrinking right now is just meaning that, you know, the smallest parts of the industry are shrinking first. The bits on the fringe, on the outskirts, at the edges of the tree, they're the bits that are losing the oxygen first. And it's really sad to see and try to be a part of.
Yeah, and there has been like a minor controversy, we'll say for now, over the past few days in the Australian games industry, which is just that Solarium Infernum, the game that was made by League of Geeks.
This is all news to me.
So the game that was made by League of Geeks before League of Geeks shut down. They were one of the 2 games they were making, but this game was finished. Whereas Jumplight Odyssey had to get like sort of put on ice. It did really well critically. It obviously didn't do enough financially for League of Geeks to continue. But like there was other reasons for that happening there anyway. It did really well critically. It was getting 9s in a lot of reviews. The AGDA's nominees for the awards, after judging has concluded, it's the nominees for the awards night have been released. That game didn't get a single nomination, which is like deeply surprising. It is incredibly, and it was nominated, like as in it was put forward as a nomination. My understanding is, but it didn't reach the actual awards night for any of the awards that it had been put forward for.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
It's a huge surprise. Who writes about that? It's Games Hub. Maybe press start.
Kotaku Australia.
Well, not anymore. Then this is what I mean. When stuff like this happens, it's a knock-on effect. Suddenly, no one is able to when I say no one, very few people now are able to write about this in any meaningful way. Right? This is not an article that makes money. This is not an article that is going to do numbers for the website. This is an article about some sort of truth, a little bit of investigation, some context.
It's reporting.
It's an important industry article. No one has the capacity to write about that anymore.
I didn't even know League of Geeks had, what do they say here? They've gone into hibernation for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that had happened.
Yeah.
That happened in June.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. When a media industry disappears, the industry below it struggles. A better media industry makes a better industry that it covers.
That is true. I also think right now there is a certain degree to which both industries are struggling. We know the games industry right now. So many industries around the world right now are struggling. I think we're on the cusp of a global recession if we haven't tipped over already. It's so many different industries, so many different places are having different cost of living crises or the same cost of living crises. And so many companies and people running businesses are just struggling to make money because people are struggling to earn money, so they're not spending money. It's a thing that's happening everywhere right now, but especially in games and games media. And I feel like I feel like both are shrinking in tandem, but in the same way that Australian coverage is sort of dying before more global or heavy-hitting US or European or coverage is sort of dying off or siloing off. In the same way, games media sort of being on the outside of games, then it's on the fringe of the games industry. Games media doesn't exist without the games industry, and so I feel like the games media industry is sort of shrinking first before the games industry itself is also shrinking.
But I think one will directly lead to I know that they are shrinking at they are both shrinking, but one will directly lead to the reduction of the other, right? Imagine a world where there is one games outlet in Australia, and imagine a world where you've got a PAX that is going with 1,800 indie games or whatever they have. They have a tremendous amount of indie games at PAX that are all buying for time to talk to people, to get articles written about, and to get to sell keys, to get their game in front of as many eyes as they possibly can. And PAX isn't cheap. You got to pay for that. That's an investment to do that. You got to pay not only in actually getting a table at PAX, you also have to pay to in development time to get a version of your game that's ready to be in front of eyes. You got to get people there to be on the show floor. Merchandise, if you're making merchandise, you got to hopefully be ready to have keys. If you're not ready to have keys, then it's a different thing altogether. It's a tricky beast to manage. If there is no one covering PAX, then why would you go to PAX? And then why would you go to PAX? Then suddenly PAX doesn't show up next year. And then if PAX doesn't show up next year, then where the hell are the indie teams that are still in Australia going to show off their game if they can't make it to Sydney, if they can't make it to Germany, if they can't make it to Japan? If
they've even managed to get the funding to get that far.
Totally. The only reason PAX came to Melbourne because Melbourne has an incredible games industry. They also had a lot of people talking about the Melbourne games industry at that moment. When one is gone, it's you've only got one, you're a car with three wheels at that point. It's everything has to go at once for the vehicle to move forward. It's dangerous. It's really, really dangerous. And Australia has seen the death of their games industry before. Wasn't that long ago when all of the big money...
we remember it.
Yeah. When all of the big money was here and it suddenly wasn't, things collapsed. It is worrying. Not just because we both want jobs. We clearly both want jobs. It's worrying that no one has jobs.
Yeah, there's no avenues.
Yeah.
The ways forward are closing in front of our eyes. And it's not like oh man, I can't wait to get paid. It's like this is what we're passionate about thing. This is what we care about.
Part of my work recently at my day job at Zero Latency has been to help put together some of the media events for the game that we're launching soon, the Space Marine game.
Oh man, I know what you're gonna say, and I hate it.
Like, I have had to adjust part of the invites so many times because not only are the outlets disappearing, I'm sitting there going I don't know who else I can invite because I don't know who else is running a site. It's frightening. It's that's a real stock take of the industry that I had to do for my work, and it wasn't a fun exercise.
Yeah, it's awful. It's harrowing.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy? What are we gonna do? Here, minimap.com.au. What are we gonna do about it?
We're going to become the second website with full-time games employees, but only if you head to our Patreon.
Oh man.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's rough. It's a tough time to it's a tough time to be looking at all this stuff.
Do you remember when that panel that we went to years ago?
Which was how to get into media or something, wasn't it?
How to get into games journalism.
Yeah. What was it? Was it Lucy O'Brien?
Yeah, Lucy O'Brien was there. Dave Milner was there. James O'Connor. And the two people from GameSpot Australia, which their names have slipped my mind.
Yes. Which was also around then and is no longer.
Yes. One of those people on that panel, I believe, is still doing games media. And he's doing it freelance, which is James O'Connor.
Yeah. Lucy's in dev now.
Yeah. Lucy's developer. Dave Milner's got the shot.
Yeah, he's so far out of games.
Yeah. He retired out of games when
he was fired out of games.
Yeah. When he wrote a little bit after it, but not much. But there were people like Serrals who were in games. There were even thinking just to the previous people that were running Kotaku prior to David, which was Leah and Alex. Alex doesn't write for games anymore either. Leah does, but Leah is one half of the full-time employed games industry in Australia.
Yep, right. Yeah.
Want
to go make it big on Twitch?
Not really, because then it's just a marketing thing again. And this is the thing, there's no avenue to push forward in this industry that doesn't involve some level of playing ball with the people that you're trying to hold to power to an extent, right? That when I'm not talking about the Washington Post level, democracy dies in the darkness level reporting here. But I'm talking about being able to critically talk about something and not have a PR person reach out to you after the fact being like, hey, I want to talk about your review. Why didn't you reach out about it ahead of time that you were going to give it such a low score? And I was like, because it's not the fucking point.
Totally.
When a studio like Bethesda is releasing the first new IP they've made in 16 years and they put out 8 review codes or something for the entire Oceania region because they don't actually want people to critically talk about their games. They only want the good press, and they have a vendetta for certain outlets. Then, that just hurts everyone.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
How's it feel to bring the document to life?
I don't feel catharsis.
No, neither do I.
Because
it's a document about an impossible situation.
I feel radicalized by my own words. I feel about as angry as I was when I started writing about it, and that's because there's no solution, and so I'm just now angry about it, but not in a I'm gonna punch a wall way, but just in that like there needs to be something that has to change here. There needs to be something that like, and it's hard because there's so many forces, right? Like everything that I've spoken about today is pouring directly into this. You know, like it's a there's no one solution. I think that there are good, you know, like I wrote about it a little bit last year, but there are good like things that have come out of it, like Aftermath and like Remap and some other outlets, right? But they're a fraction of the size of the institutions that those people worked at prior to starting their own thing. And like, you know, that's not a neg. Like that's like, you can't just suddenly start up another Kotaku. You can't just suddenly start up another Polygon. It's just not feasible. And I'm glad that those spaces have continued to exist, but they're often not mainstream yet. And
they need to be?
Well, yeah. Well, not they don't need to be, but there needs to be some. There needs to be some mainstream coverage that treats games responsibly, and is able to actively commit resources into a coverage and preservation and a understanding of games in a way that isn't compromised by advertising deals or like sponsored blurry content. And hopefully without
it's funny,
AI.
I feel like we've said in this conversation how, you know, we trust games media to be independent, and also how games media is becoming increasingly dependent on the people that they need to be critical of. It's funny.
And you know, like I'm sure a tremendous amount of writers who are at those outlets that are having to make this blurry content are not happy about it, right? Like they don't want to have their editorial independence compromised. And I'm not questioning their editorial independence because it still exists. However, when everything okay over there?
Windy something window something.
It's
Go look at that in a minute.
It's not that the editorial independence is compromised. It's that the branding and marketing teams behind it are like, what's the word? It's becoming like blurry. Like I'm just using the word blurry over and over again because I think it's a really apt term for what I'm trying to talk about. Like there's no clear understanding of when it is the editorial independence and when it is a sponsored post for Monday.com.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. It's bad time. It's bad time on the internet.
Yeah.
It was a mistake. Do you remember back in the day when there was dial-up?
Yeah.
I heard someone recently compare that to like that was the computer screaming because it had to go online. And maybe we should have maybe we should have listened to it. Maybe we should have listened to that as a, like, if the computer was screaming because it had to be forced to go online, and now we're the ones that are screaming.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should have listened to the screams.
Maybe. I take a decent amount of solace from the feeling of like, and I know this is increasingly difficult, but the feeling of like getting a game, maybe even just downloading a game, and then like I can unplug my router and sit there with my controller and think about the game on its own.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Nah, man. We'll see. I know we're both like kind of constantly thinking about this. It's going to be interesting to see what we both do in the coming weeks and months and years. Whether it's this, whether it's something else, whether it's our day jobs and nothing else, whether it's, who knows? It's a strange time to be trying to be in this industry. It's not fun. necessarily in terms of the potential outlook. At least it's not. It's definitely not optimistic. But
which is a shame because the work is good. Like the work that is being done is still good.
That's the thing. Like I don't want to stop.
No,
I like doing this still. Yeah. It's a bit more like, fuck, are we ever going to get paid to do something like this? Not that we have to. We've been doing it unpaid for years, and that's fine. But also,
and we both have freelance gigs where we do get some money doing some stuff. Like it's not like it has never been like stable.
Yeah. And that's the dream, right? To do what you love doing and to get paid doing it, so you can put all your time and effort into that, so you don't have to worry about where else you're going to get the money. Something I said to you offhand like a month ago. We were talking about, I don't know, rent or food or prices or groceries or something. And I said, what was great about the last global financial crisis in 2007? And you knew the answer that I was going to say, which was, the thing that was great about it back then was like we weren't taxpayers. Like we weren't the breadwinners. We weren't we weren't part of the workforce yet. Yeah. So like, I guess we were fortunate enough to be in families that sort of kept the head above water. And in Australia, it didn't go so badly for us with the GFC. We were relatively shielded from it in a way. I'm sure some people were hit by it, but that storm was. I felt secured from that storm. I suppose I wasn't worried about it, and now it's so frustrating to be a responsible adult with financial obligations at a time where finances have become increasingly unstable. It sucks.
Mm-hmm. And like I can list 10 off the top of my head outlets in Australia that are just purely funded like out of like the respective owner's own pockets. Yeah. And it's like it's not a financially savvy decision to do.
No.
Like it's not like we've never made money. Like no one makes money doing this. The people that make money doing this are like the handful of outlets and like a handful of YouTubers and content creators and streamers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those are often a lot of it is coming from those sponsored posts that we talk about. And mm-hmm. I get it. Like you get your money so you can live. You do that. The GFC being a thing that we didn't have to consider because of our ages last time reminds me of a tweet that I saw recently, which I thought was quite apt, which was, I miss when Lego was cheaper when I was younger, which was when my parents bought it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's not like, we didn't experience the global financial crisis like 17 years ago. Mm. It's, we were kids.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And now I've been doing this for 7 years.
Oh God.
Yeah, I was doing some Games Week application stuff recently, and one of the questions they asked me was, how long have I been in the industry? And I was like, Christ.
Oh God.
Gosh. All right.
Well, I think that's about enough.
That's it. Any final words on anything, Kerry?
Come and watch me build Star Wars Lego on my Twitch stream. Twitch.tv/Scotch240. Why is it that name? It's because I have a branding problem.
Is that hashtag ad? You hashtag sponsored?
That's why I'm never going to make it. Yeah, hashtag sponsored by Lego, hashtag an ad, hashtag not an ad.
Yeah.
Hashtag I wish it was Bionicle.
You can make Bionicle in stream. You can do that.
Oh, I've got a whole tub of Bionicles that when BD1's built and on a shelf, I'm going over my mum's. I'm like, I'm finally taking the Bionicles, mum. And I think that they're all in a state of like either built and in their capsules, or built and out of their capsules, or built as the mega conglomeration machines that you could build if you had all nice 3 or 6 of them. And so I'm either going to have to unbuild a bunch of them Well, no, I think I just have to unbuild a bunch of them. I might have to do that before I do any streaming of those. But anyway, I'm being silly.
Just do it on stream. Who cares?
Unbuild and rebuild.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this little guy.
Yeah. Sick. We will be there. We will be there front row.
Front, not center.
Not center. Front.
What
row.
about you, Jeremy? Any last words to say on anything before whenever we do the next one of these, which is who knows when?
I don't know. I'll keep doing it. Don't want to stop. It's that David Lynch thing where he's like, yeah, like I'm really ill, and if I go outside and get COVID, it'll probably kill me because I've got like throat cancer, but like I'll never retire. He's like, I love it too much. He's like, I'm not ready to retire. There's a wonderful thing that Akira Kurosawa, who was the very prominent Japanese director, would say. He used to, him and Martin Scorsese used to have conversations every now and again. Kurosawa was from a generation prior to Scorsese, where I don't exactly remember what Kurosawa said, but what I heard via Scorsese was that when he used to talk to him, he used to say that he would never retire, and his biggest regret is that he only would fall more in love with creating films the older he got, and the more films he made, he would have a deeper understanding and love for directing, and it would make him more excited. And he was terrified of his old age because he's like, I'm only seeing even more potential of things that I could do. And he used to say that,
and he's becoming less and less able to enact it.
Yeah, he was getting to, like, he was making movies like well into his 80s, I think. And Scorsese was told this when he was a young man, and he goes like, I didn't really get it when I was younger, but now I'm in my 70s, I'm in my 80s, like I get it. Like I've got that feeling of like, fuck, like I'm getting old, and all I'm seeing now is just some of the most exciting ideas I've ever had in my life for my career. Like I'm not them, but like, I don't want to.
Jeremy's the Scorsese of
not at all,
Aussie
not
games journalism.
Not at all true. Not at all what I'm implying. What I'm implying is the more I do it, the more I like to do it.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, not at all implying that I am anywhere near Scorsese or Kurosawa or Lynch. Goodness sakes.
Maybe Jeremy will be the first old men of games media.
If you're 37 and above, you're an old man in games media.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like genuinely old. Of course, that would require everyone who is older than us, of which there are many people, to give up the ghost before then. But maybe it'll be us.
Still doing this dinky show.
We gotta end the show so you can put your green screen back up.
Green screen falling down, and like camera settings not tuned, and
me laughing out of the break.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode.
Nice to do it again. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Welcome back to the show. We're glad that you listened. Before I get into the outro, I did want to give like a brief thank you to like the way more people that I expected to reach out over the 160 days since we've put something out, to be like, hey, when's your show coming back? Like not in a pressure way, but in like, oh, I looked and there wasn't anything new since last time I saw it. And I'm like,
you looked?
Yeah, right. It happened a bunch, and it was really lovely. So thank you to anyone that did that.
Yep.
I won't name names, but you know who you are. We love you all.
You know who you are.
Yeah. And thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, well, there's like 170 more of them ready for you to go. At least.
God, that's a lot.
I know it is a lot. 6 years, huh? Where can you find those episodes? You can find them on minimap.com.au. I've just put Kerry into an existential spiral as I said that. You can also follow.
Used to be so youthful.
I saw a clip of that. One of the clip outs from the other day, and I looked at myself.
One of ours.
Yeah, one of ours. because I uploaded the video on TikTok recently, and so I looked at one of the old ones, and I looked at myself in like a clip. I was like, and I looked at myself now. I'm like, fuck, I've put on weight. Like, not in any particularly bad way. I'm like, oh, I look different, huh?
I've literally been sitting here, been like, oh, these pants are a bit tight. Oh, I'm falling out over the top of them.
You can find the clips of us in smaller on various social media accounts at MiniMapAU and on minimap.com.au. You can find me on Twitter at Obi-Wan-Jez. Kerry, where can they find you on Twitter?
Look, it's at KJPalmer_24 on Twitter. I'm like, I'm either 1 day or 1 year away from deleting that account, so I don't use that website anymore. You can find me on Blue Sky at KJ Palmer, which I much prefer, but I hardly use.
Oh, good. It's not just you that's 1 day or 1 year away. I think Twitter is 1 day or 1 year away from just like turning off one day. Anyway.
Yeah.
For those of you listening on a podcast service, make sure to give us those so tasty 5-star reviews. It really does mean a lot. And consider listening to the next episode as well. And lastly, you can support us on Patreon. If you want to help keep the lights and mics on, you can go to patreon.com/minimapau. And
oh no, Jeremy.
What?
Jeremy, the lights.
The lights, they're turning off.
They're turning off.
Oh no, Kerry, the lights.
Hang on. What am I going to do?
The lights have turned off.
Wait, my microphone.
It's silenced Palmer. You haven't unmuted it if you think you have yet.
No, I know. It's just funny.
For $5 Australian, you can help keep all that good stuff going, and also ask us questions.
Dumb jokes like that.
Exactly. What better time? What better things could you spend that money on? Not even a coffee anymore. Not even a coffee anymore.
Especially not one with oat milk.
$8.80 the other day on a coffee.
Oh!
Around the corner.
That sucks.
It sucks. It was Sunday rate, but it sucks.
That's like how much I'd expect to spend on a sandwich at a cafe 10 years ago.
Yeah. And finally, always want to give a big thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv for the music for the show. You can find more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. They put out a really sick LP recently. Just tons of great grooves. As always, Shook is awesome and continues to be awesome. That's it for the show. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.